Hey cuties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Quori-Tyler, aka QT, aka Books with QT, and today we are talking about my top 25 books of 2025. I am very excited about this video because I've read 50 books this year. Well, technically I'm reading my 50th book right now, but I'm going to finish it by January 1st. So 50 books in 2025, meaning that these 25 books are exactly half of the books that I've read. So that makes me feel very confident going into this that we're going to either talk about some books that you also love or maybe help you find a newfound 5-star read. These are not all 5 stars. Technically, the pile that I'm looking at is absolutely crazy, but these are not all 5 stars. They range everywhere from 4 to 5 stars. I'm a pretty high rater, so I feel like I rate a lot of books at least a 4-star unless I truly don't like it or it takes me a long time to get through. So last night I went through all of the books that I've read. I went through my whole bookshelf and picked out the top 25 that I felt like had to be talked about in this video. And there were a few that maybe could have been added to the list, a few that I was going back and forth on, but ultimately I landed on 25 books that I feel like really represent a good year of reading for me, and books that I found maybe new genres that I really liked or new authors, and I just wanted to reflect all of that in my 2025 recap. So I love these kind of videos. I love hearing people talk about the books that they've loved from the year, and I hope that you guys enjoy this one as well. But without further ado, we're going to get into it. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what the books are about because there are 25. I don't want this video to be hours long, but I will just tell you what I liked about either the writing or the story or the plot and why I decided to add it to my top 25 of the year. My most favorite books of the year are going to be at the end of the video. So we're going to kind of work our way up to the number 1 spot. So we're going top 25 to top 1. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying? But the books that I'm going to talk about first, I still really loved. There were just so many good books this year that maybe the top 5 spots are the books that I will never stop thinking about for the rest of my life. But yeah, without further ado, let's just freaking get into it. Okay, starting this video off very strong with Nia Su's Bottom of the Pyramid. This is the only nonfiction book that I have in my top 25. It's also a really recent read for me. I talked about this in my November recap, I believe. This was so good. It's a memoir from Nia from Dance Moms, and she just wrote about her experience beautifully. I've actually last night had a dream that I was talking about this book. That's so random. But yeah, I think me being a Black dancer that grew up in competition dancing, I felt like I really related to a lot of the things that she talked about in this book. And I think she said everything very eloquently, and it was fun to see some of the behind the scenes, sometimes not so fun because some of the things that she talks about is absolutely crazy that she had to go through. But I think this was probably my favorite memoir that I've ever read. I've only ever read a few, Britney Spears, this one and a few others. But this one is definitely a top up there, and I just had to include it in my 2025 recap. So only nonfiction book that made it onto the list. I don't know where I'm going to start stacking them because I think I'm just going to put it back down here. Okay, sorry. The water heater in our house was not working, so someone just came to fix it. Lovely. Interrupted my video a little bit. It's okay. Okay, let's get back into it. Okay, up next, coming in 24th place is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. This was my first time reading a B.K. Borison book, and I really enjoyed her writing. I'm saying her, and then I'm like, wait, is it a guy? No, it's a girl. It's a girl. I really enjoyed her writing. It was dual perspective. I love a good old-fashioned dual perspective book. I feel like we aren't getting that a lot lately in romances. I don't know if it's just the romances I've been reading, but I really liked both characters' perspectives. In this one, I think I liked Aiden, our male main character, a little bit more than Lucy, but I enjoyed Lucy's story, and Lucy's story of being a single mom who hasn't dated in a long time. It was really fun to read about because it's something that we don't get very often. So it was a very unique storyline. I enjoyed her daughter in this. She wasn't in it too much, so it didn't take away from the romance we got between our 2 main characters, but she was in it enough and funny enough that I liked the scenes that she was in. And overall, I just love the dynamic of these 2 being on the radio together, doing this show and trying to figure out what their relationship was as well. I thought was really interesting. And again, I really liked the writing of this. Okay, next was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young, and I love this. This is another new author. I had never read a Hannah Bonham Young book before, but I thought this was really good. It's about two people who are, I want to say the right word for it. It's about two people who have missing limbs, and our female main character, Wynn, has had like a missing hand, I think, since she was born. And then our male main character, Beau, was amputated. So they have different experiences of having these like limb differences, but they come together in a unique way. Very, very interesting. There's a big plot twist, I guess you can say, that happens towards the beginning of the book that I thought was really interesting for them to navigate together. But this one was just like a very sweet romance, and I just enjoyed these two people. They made me feel very happy. There wasn't a lot of miscommunication. There was nothing like annoying going on or toxic. It was just a very sweet romance, and I enjoyed these two couples. I enjoyed these two people as a couple. Okay, moving into some fantasy, we have Lightlark by Alex Astor, and I truly enjoyed this video. I've talked about it a lot on my channel, so I don't want to talk too in-depthly about it again to bore you, but it's a YA fantasy book, and it's honestly, it goes by pretty fast. It looks pretty thick, but it goes by pretty fast. There's about, I think, 4 or 5 books out in this series. I've only read this and the second book, Nightbane. I didn't love as much, but this one I really did. It reminded me of how I felt after reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, where I was just like really intrigued, because I feel like for the ACOTAR series, I didn't get super invested into ACOTAR until I got to Mist and Fury, the second book. But this Lightlark book gave me the same feeling that I had in the first book of ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses, where I was just really interested in the story. I was getting invested in the characters. We have a little bit of a love triangle in this one, and I didn't know who I was honestly rooting for more. I felt like at one point I was rooting for the person I shouldn't be rooting for, but then when I got to the second book, I was like, maybe this was the right decision. I don't know, but it's very interesting. It's an interesting world. It's not too complicated, so it's easy to get into if you're new to fantasy. And just overall, I thought this was a very fun fantasy book to read that wasn't too complicated. Coming in 21st place, we have The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and this book has been around for a very long time. It's a GMA book club pick. I think it was also like an Oprah book club, or at least Oprah has talked about this book. Very, very, very interesting book. A little bit of a historical fiction, not really romance, like not romance at all, actually. It was literally just like literary fiction, woman fiction. It was about two girls from like the I want to get the timeline right. I want to say it's like the 1940s, maybe. Sorry, please just give me a second. Okay, it was based around the 1960s. We have a little bit of past and present timeline. It's two Black girls that are white passing. One of the twins ends up running away and having a totally brand new life and living as a white person in a white neighborhood with a white husband that doesn't even know that she's actually Black. And then on the opposite end, we have another twin that comes back home to her roots and raises her daughter as a Black girl. And I don't know, it was just a very interesting dynamic and something that I never really thought about or read about or knew about. But yeah, like a Black white passing story. I don't know like technically the technicalities of what to say about it, but I thought that this was such an interesting book and a nice way for me to get out of my comfort of just having romance books all the time. I think this year a trend that we're going to start to see, I mean, I have a lot of romance books here, but a trend that I started to see with myself is that romance books were starting to get a little bit repetitive, and I was looking for something new, something maybe a little bit deeper, and I thought that this was the perfect deep book without me feeling like bored by it. It was still an interesting storyline, and I love that it was fiction as well. Like, I don't know, it was just the perfect towing the line between a true fiction story but then also having some real raw elements to it. Okay, up next we have Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is TJR's new release for the year, and a lot of people talked about it. A lot of people loved it. I also loved it. I tabbed it a bunch. You can see there. Actually, not as much as I expected that I would, but I think it was because it was a pretty short book, but it kept me at the edge of my seat the entire time. Literally from page 1, you are wondering what is going to happen. Who are these people? Is someone going to die? It's very high stakes, obviously, being an astronaut book and people are in space for the first time. And I don't know, it was just very crazy. This was another one that we went back in time a little bit of a historical fiction, if you will, without it being like too historical. I think it was like 1984. I think this is another one where it was kind of going back and forth or kind of chronological at a time, but I think we start in the 60s and then end in 1984. So we're getting a span of time of our main character's life. A little bit of a plot twist at the end. Just overall a really good book that kept me entertained the entire time. Okay, then we went to How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong, and this is one that I've heard about a lot. I feel like this year too, I really wanted to read some of those older books that were popular before I started reading. I started reading in like 2021 and I feel like there was some books from like 2020, 2019 that got a lot of hype, or maybe even 2021 that got a lot of hype that I never read because there's just always so many new books that people are talking about. But this was one of those books that I wanted to go back and read, and I'm very glad that I did. This is another one where the love story was just so sweet and beautiful, but also very like passionate and heartfelt because of the way that these two people get together. It's a bit of an enemies to lovers, but also like these two people like can't be together, you know, like when you realize who they are to each other, you're like, wait, they literally like can't. And then you put yourself into the main character's perspective and it's like, can I ever be with someone that did this? I don't want to give anything away, but because of that, I felt like it was a very interesting like push and pull and a tug of even my heartstrings of me wondering like, is this realistic? Like, should these two people be together? But then ultimately just loving how their story kind of develops. So I really liked this one a lot. Then we have One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. Carly Fortune's one of my favorite writers. I love most of her books. I think the only one I didn't like was Meet Me by the Lake, but other than that, I love her summery romances, and I'm so excited to read whatever she comes out with in 2026. This one brings back a little bit of Every Summer After, which is the first book I read by her. The first book I think that most people read by her. I think it might have even been her debut novel. But we get the brother from Every Summer After in this book as the love interest. So we're not necessarily seeing his side of the story. We don't get his perspective, but we get his love interest's perspective. And our main character kind of reflects on the fact that she saw him from a distance when they were younger and she was on the beach. And then all of a sudden sees him again. I think it's like maybe 15 years later or something like that. So interesting to see where that goes along. I won't spoil anything for you, but it was really interesting seeing some of the characters that I loved from Every Summer After come back and seeing them in a new light as like older people, because in Every Summer After they're a little bit younger, and I don't know, it was just interesting to see them in a different light. And I really enjoyed this book. I loved it. I think I might read it again this summer. Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. Now this one I really tabbed up. I absolutely ate this up. I mean, I truly do eat up everything that Jessa Hastings writes. Now, let me just preface this and say, I know there's been a lot of controversy over Jessa Hastings, and it's going to be hard to support maybe some things that she does in the future because of that. But I didn't want to not be true to what I was really enjoying this year. And so I just wanted to quickly mention the fact that I really did like this book. There's a lot of character development in here. It's a very character heavy book, not necessarily plot driven. And I usually go for more of a plot driven book. So it was interesting that I liked this, but I loved our female main character. We just had like a lot of people with a lot of flaws. So it made it feel a little bit more real. There also is romance in here, but I think I liked this for more of the family dynamic and the craziness that was going on with the people more than even the romance, but the romance was a nice touch. So, okay, now talking about an author that I'm absolutely obsessed with, we have Real by Kennedy Ryan. And this was the first Kennedy Ryan book that I actually read. In the beginning of the year, I was offered an amazing opportunity to interview Kennedy Ryan with Spotify audiobooks in New York. And I was like, I need to read some of her stuff, but I kind of wanted a deep cut. So I went with Real before going with the Skyland series that everyone talks about, which I will be talking about later. And I'm happy that I started with this one because it made me see how real and raw Kennedy Ryan is willing to get in her books about topics that a lot of people are not discussing or that maybe don't seem to coincide with what a romance book should be. And I think she does it beautifully and integrates the two worlds just in a great way. It's like these people are going through real things that real people really do go through, like sicknesses and cancer and all of that stuff. But then she's also able to intertwine the romance in a very interesting way that feels real and explores like when you are going through something like a sickness in your family, maybe your relationship has some issues because of it, and it's not always just perfect dandelions and flowers. But yeah, so I think she does that really well. And in Real, that was no different. Okay, we're almost halfway there. Okay, then we have Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. And now we're starting to get to the part where I was having difficulty of the order I was putting things in, because I really love all these books so much. So now I'm kind of like, maybe Ruthless Vows should have been before Real, because Real was a little bit better. I don't know. But I just really enjoyed this whole Divine Rivals series. This is a fantasy series that's based in like a wartime, but not a real war. It's like a war of the gods or something like that. And so there's like magical elements to it. There's a magical typewriter that our two love interests are talking back and forth on, but they don't realize that they're actually talking to their sworn enemy from work. And then this explores that second section of their story when they do realize who each other is, and exploring all of that. And because it's war, it's very high stakes, and there's a lot that goes on that is a little bit scary, but a very great read. I love Divine Rivals, and Ruthless Vows was no different. Okay, then we have Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. And I feel like I didn't talk about this book enough this year on my channel or on my TikTok or Instagram, wherever it is. But I really did enjoy it. And I think I haven't talked about it a lot because a lot of people seem to not like it so much. Where I think I was one of the like only maybe book influencers that gave it like a 5-star. I thought that this was a very fun read. It reminded me a lot of not the plot of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but the writing style of it, where we have a very affluent woman that is telling the story of her childhood and of her history to two reporters that are trying to report on the story of her family, because they come from great wealth. And it's very interesting how some of the family members die. And I don't know, there's just like crazy stories within what she's telling. And I thought it was really fun to read about. And it felt like I was, I don't know, maybe reading like a journal of a future Kardashian kid that talks about the empire that they built. Like, I don't know. It felt very regal and fun. Next is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, another fantasy book. This one, I'm sad that I hadn't started this sooner, and I actually can't wait to start the second book. I have it on my shelf, and I'm just like waiting to start it when I have time to literally sit there and binge the whole book, because this one I loved so much. We have a girl who has this magical thing in her head, but it's not like good magic, it's bad, dark magic. And it's a voice in her head that basically is just like evil. I end up loving the voice in her head. It's called Nightmare, I believe. Yeah, the Nightmare. And I end up loving him. And I think he's such a fun part of this story and makes it very interesting. But the whole story is about, like, she's not supposed to have magical powers. Not even people in her family know that she has this. But then she meets a group of people that also have these powers, or similar powers, or powers at all. And they're kind of like the rebels of the town. So I'm interested to see where this goes for book number 2. But book number 1, oh my gosh, so highly recommend. I got through this one so fast because I loved it so much. Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. This one was another very quick read for me. It was a bit of a mystery, but not in the way of like a gory slasher thriller or anything like that. It was just like a whodunit a little bit more, but not as funny as a whodunit is sometimes. I don't know how to explain, but hopefully you're getting the picture. We have a little bit of a love triangle, love story, past and present timeline, but ultimately I feel like it's more of just like a literary mystery. I don't know if that's a category, but that's how I would describe this, and very interesting. And I really like the writing in this. It was very like, this is like how I'm picturing it in my head. It was just not jumpy, but very to the point, and it kept you on the edge of your seat. Oh my gosh, If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. Now, this is another one that I had been wanting to get for a while. I know people had talked about it a lot when it first came out, probably in like 2019, I think it was published, something like that. But I was not prepared for the emotional turmoil that this was going to take me through. And everyone said it. Everyone said that this book is bound to make you cry. In the beginning of it, I was like, I don't know if it actually will. I'm not feeling connected to these people. And then by the time we got to the middle of it, I was like, wow, this is destroying my heart. And I think about these characters all the time. And this is another one. I'm excited to read the second book that I have on my shelf back there, because it's through the man's perspective, which is interesting if you know what the concept of this first book is. But yeah, this was emotionally shattering. And honestly, it's like one of those things where it's, I feel bad to even recommend it, because it's just going to break your heart. Like, I don't even know if there was any kind of solace in this, unfortunately, but a really good book nonetheless. Okay, we have made it to our top 10 books of 2025, and now these were even harder to get in order. I had to literally sit there with these 10 books and think to myself, like, if someone said you can only read one book for the rest of your life, which one would it be out of these 10? And then from there, I decided what was going to be first and what was going to be 10. But let me just tell you, it was a hard decision. But rounding out, is that how you start it? I don't know. But coming in 10th place is Bad Blood by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And this is a YA mystery book. I talked about this series so much in 2024. So go back to any of those videos. You'll see one of the books of this series in the thumbnails of those videos that I talk about it in. So I don't want to talk about it too much because the people who have been watching my videos for a while are going to know I'm just absolutely obsessed with this book. It's about these like young high school kids that have these special powers, but not magical powers. It's more just like they're really smart with math, or they can see when someone's lying. Like they just have like interesting quirks about them that make them really good FBI agents. And even though they're children, they are secretly working or helping the FBI solve cold cases. And this is the final book in the series. There's one plot line that kind of is intertwined between all of the books. Each book covers a different, it's kind of like when you watch Law and Order, where every episode covers a different like story, but then there's one main storyline that goes throughout the whole season. Well, that's what we wrap up in this book. Another one that's just like emotional turmoil through the roof. I can't believe what happened in this. I'm like both very happy and very sad about it all, but ultimately I think it was the perfect end to this series, and one of the perfect ends to any series I think that I've ever read fully through. Coming in 9th place, well, let's do 9th and 8th place. 9th and 8th place were really hard to pick between these two books, but they kind of are like the same rating. But it's This Could Be Us and Can't Get Enough, also by Kennedy Ryan, my fave. These are the two books in the Skyland series. There's 3 total, but 2 that I read this year. And they're about a group of 3 girlfriends that have very different lives and different relationship dynamics, whether they're married and have kids, or like Hendrix over here in This Could Be in Can't Get Enough, does not want kids, but is looking for love. And I think they all but they all have very interesting stories and personalities that are very different. And I think Kennedy Ryan did a great job of making their personalities so starkly different, but all kind of come together in a very funny and fun way. And it's just like girlies getting together and like gabbing and yapping about all of the drama. So I love that. But then again, like I said, with all Kennedy Ryan books, they have very deep topics that each one discusses, and I thought that it was just interesting to read about it all. So I love these characters so much. These are books that I am never going to forget about and going to probably reread every single year. So I'm excited to get into my reread of these. I'm wondering if January needs to be a reread month, because I want to read all of my favorite books over again after doing this video. 7 and 6 are also a series. We have We Were Liars and Family of Liars. And these books, I seriously, I'm not even kidding, did not expect to like them as much as I did, especially because they're kind of like YA mystery books. And I feel like, well, actually, maybe I'm realizing I like YA mystery books more than I thought I would. I always think YA mystery is going to be very like Pink Panther, like doom, but no, they're like actually really good, and there's some crazy things that happened in these books. We Were Liars is about these cousins that all come together during the summer. They have 3 different moms, but all the cousins are very close because they spend every summer together from their first year living, and their families are very wealthy. They live in the summer on this big island off of Maine, I believe. There's some crazy things that go on. You can only imagine what goes on a rich island where a family is very wealthy and there's a lot of secrets. So a lot happens here. But then I think I liked Family of Liars even more than We Were Liars, which I think is, I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion or if just not enough people have read Family of Liars yet, but this goes back in time and we talk about the 3 sister stories. So the moms from We Were Liars, we go back and see what they were like growing up, also in a very wealthy, affluent family. And they have some secrets of their own that I think are the kids would be shocked to know probably trump theirs. But yeah, it just explores family and like what you would literally do for family. So 2 of my favorite reads of the year. And I'm excited because the reason I read We Were Liars is because the show is coming out and I was going to the premiere, but I wanted to read the book before I saw the show. And the show is amazing on Amazon Prime, but the book was incredible. And I'm excited because season 2 of the show is going to be Family of Liars. So excited to read all of that, or to watch all of that. But I definitely recommend you guys read those books before the show comes out. Okay, now this book being in 5th place is actually shocking to me. When I read it, I thought for sure it was going to be my number 1 book of the year, but turns out I read even better books, which is crazy. I wouldn't even say better, but just books that I think impacted me even more. I don't know. Honestly, this top 5, you could put them in any order and I would be okay with it. But top 5, number 5 is going to be Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I know, you guys, the fact that this is my first year reading this is insane. Everyone was talking about this in like 2022, 2023. Like no one stopped talking about it. And I just didn't believe the hype because everyone said, oh my gosh, it's just like, or everyone would say that Every Summer After is just like Love in Other Words. And I loved Every Summer After. So I think I truly just didn't want something to trump that book for me. I always say, if you've been here for a while, you know that I say that I actually I think it does a disjustice to tell people that have never read the 2 books or haven't read one of the 2 books that Love in Other Words and Every Summer After are just the same kind of thing, because I actually don't think it is. I felt like this book was a lot like harder emotionally for the 2 characters, and I felt a little bit deeper, and they also go through like completely different things. So I can see where people are saying like the plot is maybe a little bit similar, or like getting from point A to point B, the fact that it's past and present timeline, childhood friends to lovers. But other than that, I thought that this book was different enough where I can still appreciate Every Summer After and realize how much I love in Other Words. But yeah, this is another one, very emotional read. I read this during a 24-hour readathon, so you can only imagine. I was tired. It was 2 a.m. I had been up all day reading this and sobbing my eyes out. So go watch that video if you haven't seen it. It was like a video, I think, in January or February on my channel. All right, spot number 4 goes to Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. And it's a big boy, by the way, but I enjoyed every single page of this. This is my first time reading a historical fiction. It actually wasn't my first time reading, but it was my first time enjoying a historical fiction, I should say. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. It's about 2 sisters from France during World War II and seeing what they go through and the similarities that they share, but also they're very different personality wise. So while one tries to go fight and be on the front ends of the war, the other one kind of stays back, but is protecting her home and her family and her people to the best of her ability. So even though they're 2 very different and don't see eye to eye a lot of the time, especially when it comes to things about World War II, they end up both helping people in a way that I think is very beautiful and admirable. And I mean, everyone's going to tell you if they've read this book that they recommend it, and I am no different than any of them. Now, this is my most recent read, and whoa, did I not expect to feel the things that I felt about this one. It is Heart the Lover by Lily King. If I could read this book on repeat, I probably would. Like, if I didn't have a reading goal where I wanted to finish 50 books in the year and needed to start a new one after this, I probably would have read this, like gone cover to cover, back to back, because this was incredible. It's a pretty short book, so you can get done pretty fast, but very emotional read. And we're taken through like 2 different timelines in a very interesting way. And our characters are very well developed. And I felt like I really understood all of them. And I feel like I can't say that with a lot of books these days. Like, you kind of just get like the main character's perspective and you don't really understand the other characters maybe as much as your main character. Where in this one, even the people that weren't narrating the book, I felt like I understood where they were coming from. And I don't know, it just felt like everyone was very fleshed out, and Lily King, the author, did a good job of developing her characters very well. And it could be actually because I realized that this is kind of like the second book in an interconnected series where Writers and Lovers is the first time you're introduced to most of the characters from this book. So maybe it's because of that. Like, most people have already met these characters, where this was my first time experiencing them. And now I'm excited to go back and read Heart the Lover, because this is the sequel to that, but then also kind of the prequel because we're also getting past and present timeline. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how both stories kind of intersect. But the writing was incredible. This is another one where it had, I feel like when I say choppy writing, it's insulting to say to the author, but it had just like quick writing that went from point A to point B and didn't have too much fluff where it was like metaphors. And I love that sometimes. Like I loved it in Conditions of Will, but I also appreciate a book that gets right to the point and gets us moving along. And I think this one did a beautiful job of doing that while also pulling at your heartstrings. Okay, we have 2 more books. I can't believe we're getting through this pretty fast. Okay. Oh gosh. Now 2 in 1. I'm like sitting here thinking, should I switch my 2 in 1? But no, because if I really think about it, if I could only read one of these books for the rest of my life, I think I would pick that as one. Coming in second place, this is crazy, you guys. It is not a romance book. How in the world? It's not romance, it's not fantasy, it's nothing that you're going to expect. It is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Now, I feel like this is the book of the year. I think a lot of people have been talking about it and are going to be talking about it, and we're going to be seeing it a lot in 2025, in 2026, because I feel like at the end of this year, just everyone's talking about it. So I had to see what the hype was about, and boy, am I glad I did. I actually picked this book up and intended to only read it for like 10 minutes just to like get it started, and ended up sitting here and reading it for hours and could not put it down. I read it so fast, even though it's like over 500 pages. Actually, no, it's like just about 500 pages. Another space book that has no romance in it and is about like this one guy that's tasked to save the world because the sun is getting colder or something like that. I don't even know. I don't understand any of the science behind it all, but I seriously loved this book so much. And you just have to take my word for it and read it if you haven't read it yet. Even if you're not a science fiction person, I'm telling you, I'm the farthest thing from a science fiction person that there ever was. And this book changed my life. I can't stop thinking about it. And I'm obsessed with Rocky. That's all you need to know. All right, guys, my top book of the year is actually the first book that I read this year, and it is A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. Now, this is seriously a book or a series that I need to reread as soon as possible. I feel like I read it too fast because I loved the series so much, and this is the 3rd book in the series, but I was just, I couldn't stop. I couldn't put the books down. I couldn't stop reading it, and now I feel like I didn't let it last as long as I would want it to, so I need to read it again. But yeah, this is the 3rd book in a romantasy series, and this is a true romantasy. Like, you know those fantasy books that they say are romantasies, but you don't get romance until like book number 2 and page 589? Like, no, you're getting the romance from this series from book number 1, and it all wraps up in A Curse for True Love. There are some crazy things that happen, a lot of plot twists, a lot of different characters and things happening. There's also a lot of side characters that we really get into in this book, and I believe Stephanie Garber said that we're going to get them as main characters in future books, so I'm very excited about that. But I think if you haven't read this series, now is the time to do so, because I think there's going to be another big boom of people talking about this series when Stephanie Garber chooses to put out the next books in it about the next characters. So wow, did I love this. And no, I did not read Caraval before this, because that's the question I get all the time. And no, I couldn't get into Caraval. I have the Caraval book right there, and I never was able to get into it. So I just put it down and decided to pick up Once Upon a Broken Heart, ended up loving it, and finished the series. So this is my number 1 book of the year, because I could read this book seriously over and over and over again and never get bored of it. Okay, you guys, well, those are my top 25 books of 2025. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you found maybe some new books to read, or you were excited to see me talk about some of the books that maybe made your top 25 of 2025. But let me know what I want to know what your top 3 books of the year are, because I know as readers, it's hard to pick just one. So I'm going to give you top 3. Comment and let me know what your top 3 books of 2025 were. And maybe let me know what book you're looking forward to read in 2026, because I need some ideas to add to my TBR. All right, guys, that is all I have for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for watching all of my videos in 2025. I think this is going to be my last video of the year as well, so I appreciate it. I have so much planned for 2026. It's going to be a fun booktube year. And yeah, I will see you guys next time for my next video. Thank you guys so much. Oh, and happy last day of Bookmas. Happy holidays. I love you guys so much, and I will see you next year. Bye, guys. Mwah.